Okay, let's dive into something that sounds, well, almost like a superpower.
A superpower. How so?
What if there were triggers, specific points you could connect with that would reliably influence how people see you or what they do?
Ah, okay. Persuasion?
Maybe even, dare I say, make someone like you or buy something from you. For someone like me, kind of introverted, spent a lot of time lost in books and games growing up,
Uh-huh.
the idea of understanding these hidden dynamics felt like uncovering some kind of code for, navigating the real world. Could there actually be a method to this madness?
Well, it's not quite magic, but the material we've been looking at gets surprisingly close to that idea. It's really rooted in the work of American psychologist Professor Robert Cialdini.
Right, the influence guy.
Exactly. His landmark book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And this isn't just, pop psychology. Cialdini's a respected professor, dedicated his career to observing and understanding human behavior in real-world settings, too.
Right, and that book, it's sold millions, hasn't it? Clearly struck a nerve. So our mission in this deep dive is to really understand the core of what Cialdini uncovered.
Yeah.
He presents this fascinating view of how we're influenced, often automatically. Almost like certain triggers press these predictable buttons inside us.
Automatic triggers.
We want to unpack these principles and see how they shape our interactions, every single day.
And the reach of these principles is far wider than just sales or, formal negotiations. Think about it.
Yeah.
Any moment you've tried to convince someone of something, or when you've been convinced yourself, clicking a YouTube thumbnail, maybe.
Definitely.
That's persuasion. Choosing a product based on reviews. Persuasion again. Asking for a favor. Getting your idea heard at work.
Mm-hmm.
Even asking someone out. Influence is constantly at play. And understanding these underlying mechanisms, like the material highlights, it can absolutely impact your effectiveness, your success in life, really.
So let's get into this central idea from the source material then, that beneath all our complexity, human beings have these specific buttons. And when they're activated, they can surprisingly influence our behavior, like whether we're drawn to someone or decide to buy something.
It's fascinating. The book starts with this really striking animal example to illustrate this kind of automatic response, the turkey and the weasel.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that.
So a weasel is a natural enemy of a turkey, right? Normally, a mother turkey would fiercely attack one near her nest.
Makes sense. Protect the chicks.
But experiments show that if you put a weasel near her and it made the cheep, cheep sound of a baby turkey.
No way.
Yes. The mother turkey would immediately switch from aggression to nurturing, bringing the weasel under her wing, protecting it.
That's incredible. A simple sound completely overrides a fundamental instinct.
It does. It's a powerful, maybe slightly unsettling demonstration of what they call a fixed action pattern, an automatic response triggered by one specific thing.
Yeah.
And the insight Cialdini draws is that while we humans are obviously far more complex, we also have certain triggers that can prompt similarly automatic, predictable responses.
So these are the buttons.
These are the buttons. He identified 6 core principles or levers that function like these psychological buttons.
All right, let's pull back the curtain then. What's the first lever?
The first one is reciprocity.
Reciprocity, okay.
This principle taps into a really deep-seated human need for fairness, for obligation. When someone gives you something, offers you something of value.
You feel like you owe them.
Exactly. You naturally feel a pull to return the favor, or at least feel positively towards them.
It feels almost primal, doesn't it? The source even mentions seeing that with animals, like monkeys in experiments.
That's right.
They showed clear distress, even aggression, when they were treated unfairly compared to others getting rewards for the same thing. That expectation of balance, of reciprocity, it seems incredibly fundamental.
It really is. And the practical takeaway here is pretty significant. In business, or just relationships, providing value up front.
Without asking for anything back immediately.
Right. It builds trust, it builds goodwill, offering free samples, sharing useful info, even just giving a genuine compliment. These actions trigger reciprocity. Makes people more receptive, more open to you later on.
Okay, makes sense. Lever number 2, liking. This one seems, obvious. We're more easily persuaded by people we like.
It sounds obvious, yeah.
Yeah.
But the source gives this fascinating comparison that shows just how potent it is.
Go on.
It contrasts trying to use pure logic in a debate, say, about evolution, with someone who holds a deeply emotional belief, like creationism.
Right, facts often just bounce off.
Exactly, they hit a wall. But now, consider the power of someone who is liked. The material suggests that if someone with immense likability, like a famous popular celebrity.
Like George Clooney, the example used.
Right. If he simply stated, "I believe in evolution," his fans might be more swayed by that emotional connection, by their liking for him, than by hours of scientific evidence presented by someone they don't know or like.
That makes perfect sense. It's not just what is said, but who says it. It's basically the foundation of all influencer marketing today, isn't it?
Pretty much. We buy because we trust and, crucially, like the person recommending it.
So how do we increase liking, according to Cialdini?
Well, his work identifies a few key factors. Physical attractiveness is when it's acknowledged as a powerful, if sometimes uncomfortable, initial draw.
Okay.
Highlighting genuine similarities is another big one. Shared interests, backgrounds, values that builds rapport fast.
Finding common ground.
Exactly. And maybe the most surprisingly simple one, giving compliments. Genuine ones, of course.
I loved that personal story from the source about navigating an awkward party. The author decided to genuinely compliment, 30 different people?
Yeah, something like that.
And the insight there is really profound.
Mm-hmm.
We are kind of wired to like those who seem to like us. A neutral expression can sometimes feel cold or even hostile.
Right, we misinterpret it.
But a simple, sincere compliment signals warmth, positive regard. It immediately starts building that bridge of liking. It's powerful.
Absolutely. Okay, lever number 3. Social proof.
Social proof. This is the idea that we look to others to figure out how to behave, right? Especially when we're unsure.
Precisely. It's that classic phenomenon.
Yeah.
The right person looks up at the sky.
Soon everyone's looking up.
Yeah.
You assume there must be something interesting if everyone else is doing it.
Exactly. The actions of the majority, or even just people we see as being in the know, heavily influence us. The source gives another good example. A regular college student.
Yeah.
They might appear more attractive, more trustworthy if they're frequently seen hanging out with popular, well-liked individuals. Their perceived value increases through that association. That's social proof.
And you see this everywhere, don't you? From book sales figures, knowing Cialdini's book sold 3 million copies instantly tells you it's probably valuable, to viral video titles. The source mentioned that video, Harvard Professor's Immersion Secret, getting 600,000 views.
Right.
A huge part of why that's appealing isn't just the potential content, it's the massive social proof. All those views, plus the implied credibility of the title itself. Seeing others engaged boosts our own interest and trust.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Which leads nicely into lever number 4, authority.
Authority, okay.
We have this deep-seated tendency to defer to people we perceive as authority figures, often without really scrutinizing what they say or ask.
That Harvard professor title we just mentioned is a perfect example, isn't it? It works on both levels.
Exactly. The title itself screams authority, expert knowledge. And then the high view count provides the social proof that lots of people found this authority figure's insights valuable. They work together.
Yeah, and think about that other comparison. 5 books that changed my life versus 5 books that made me $100 million salary.
Big difference in perceived authority there.
Right. The second one implies this massive financial authority, and it's likely to grab way more attention and trust from certain people. Authority just lends credibility and really amps up the persuasive power.
Definitely. Okay, number 5, scarcity.
The fear of missing out. FOMO.
Pretty much. Things that are limited or rare, they automatically feel more valuable, more desirable to us.
The evolutionary reason for this is strong, right? We're wired to hate losing out on things.
Very much so. If something's scarce, our immediate thought is, uh-oh, I might lose the chance to get this. Classic Black Friday limited quantity sales play right into it.
Yeah, it creates instant urgency. And the source had that really interesting business example, maybe a bit counterintuitive.
The marketing company.
Yeah, the one that deliberately set like a 2-3 month waiting list and had a strict screening process for clients.
Right. And what happened? The clients who got rejected ended up telling people, wow, that company's really hard to get into.
Which, paradoxically, made the company seem more appealing, more desirable to others.
Exactly. Making something harder to get, making it scarce. It actually increased its charm, its perceived value. It creates exclusivity.
Scarcity boosts appeal. Got it. And the last one, number 6.
Lever number 6 is consistency.
Consistency.
Oh, humans have this powerful psychological need to be consistent. Consistent with decisions we've already made, positions we've taken, commitments we've made, especially publicly.
This is like the old foot in the door technique, right?
That's the classic example, yeah. Get someone to agree to something small first, a tiny commitment.
And then they're much more likely to agree to a bigger related request later.
Much more likely. Because they want to stay consistent with that initial action or statement. They don't want to seem flaky or contradict themselves.
The modern example from the source about the used car dealership makes this super clear. Someone decides, okay, I'm going to that dealership to look for a car. They've made an initial commitment just by going there with intent.
Right. The action is taken.
So even if the specific car they wanted to see isn't available when they arrive, they are significantly more likely to buy a different car from that same dealership.
Why?
Because they want to be consistent with their original decision. I came here to buy a car. Leaving empty-handed feels inconsistent.
It's a strong internal pressure. And the publishing example was good too.
Yeah.
Asking customers who bought a book.
To write a blog post or a review about its good points?
Yeah. By actually writing down and articulating why the book is valuable, they reinforce their own belief in its quality. It digs the commitment deeper.
So they're much less likely later to say or think negative things about it. They want to remain consistent with their public written endorsement.
Exactly. Small commitments really can pave the way for larger ones, and they definitely solidify existing beliefs. People like to stick to their guns.
So let's recap those 6 levers Cialdini identified. Reciprocity, social proof,
Authority.
and consistency.
Understanding these really feels like seeing the hidden architecture of how influence works.
It provides an incredibly insightful framework, both for perhaps influencing others, but also, crucially, for understanding when you are being influenced, recognizing these patterns in the world around you.
But here's where this deep dive gets maybe even more profound. The source introduces a really critical perspective, kind of a twist.
Ah, yes. The limitation.
Right, that while mastering these techniques is valuable, these persuasion principles alone, they aren't the ultimate answer.
That's the essential point, and maybe the most important one. The material stresses that essence, as the source puts it, genuine inherent value, is fundamentally more important than the techniques.
So you can use all the tricks.
You can apply all 6 principles perfectly, but if the product you're selling, the idea you're promoting, the person you are, if the core essence isn't genuinely good or valuable,
It'll backfire eventually. Exactly. These techniques might get you short-term gains, maybe some initial sales for a bad book based on marketing. But reaching millions, that requires the book itself to have true, valuable essence. A bad product, however well marketed, eventually leads to backlash.
And this applies just as much, maybe even more powerfully, to personal connection and relationships, right? The source points this out.
Definitely. You might use some techniques to get someone's attention initially, maybe get a first date, but genuine, lasting attraction, real connection, that's not built on techniques.
It comes from cultivating your own essence.
Right, which the source describes in terms of things like appearance, sure, but also intelligence,
Yeah.
passion, your character, your depth, your genuine self.
That really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? It feels like that's the potentially life-changing insight the source mentions.
I think so too. Persuasion techniques are tools. They can open doors, maybe make things a bit easier, smooth the path, but they are completely insufficient on their own.
The real work is on yourself.
Exactly. Cultivating your own internal value, your character, your skills, your passions, your integrity, your essence. That's the prerequisite for any true sustainable influence or success or meaningful relationships. It's the harder path for sure. It requires real personal effort, growth.
But that's where the real impact lies.
That's where it lies.
So the value isn't just learning the buttons to push in other people. It's kind of recognizing that understanding these principles teaches us about fundamental human nature, including our own predictable responses.
Seeing ourselves in the patterns too.
Yeah. And maybe the real transformative insight here is understanding that while we can nudge external outcomes with these tools, the most profound influence, the most fulfilling success, the deepest connections, they really stem from building genuine value within ourselves. It's about becoming someone others genuinely want to connect with and trust and maybe even follow, not because you pulled the right psychological lever,
But because of who you actually are. Because of your essence.
It reframes the whole idea, moving away from just techniques or manipulation.
Towards cultivating authentic value, which benefits everyone in the long run.
So perhaps the thought to carry with you from this deep dive is this. If understanding these psychological levers gives us valuable insight into how we and others are influenced, maybe the most powerful application isn't just using them on the world, but in recognizing that our greatest leverage and maybe the source of truly life-changing growth comes from building that unshakable foundation of our own genuine essence.